everybody underestimates the success and the value of Bitcoin, and they overestimate everything else. I mean, Bitcoin is 10 years old, successful proof of work system. It's not clear to me, like, you've only got two things in the blockchain that have been deemed as property or commodity, Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's only two, but there's only one of them that has a consistent strategy for the next decade and a consistent path for the last decade, and that's Bitcoin, right? So I think it's pretty important to understand that Bitcoin is pretty much the most predictable thing in the entire blockchain universe. Everything else is uncertain. There's massive technical uncertainty, security uncertainty, legal uncertainty, execution uncertainty. And so I think people overestimate, right, the certainty or the value of everything else. I think they underestimate the value of Bitcoin. People ask me if I'm, are you going to diversify? And my point is, the most diversified strategy you could take is own all the Bitcoin. Every single time you buy something other than Bitcoin in the blockchain system, you're actually assuming a whole basket of new risks that you didn't even know you assumed, and you're losing diversification against the traditional conventional economy. You've got $500 trillion worth of assets in the world. Every bank, every big tech company, every government on earth, every one of them would solve their problems by buying Bitcoin. If Apple, Google, and Facebook build Bitcoin into their application, they improve their business. If El Salvador or Cuba or Turkey or Japan or Russia or the US or the UK or France buy Bitcoin, they fix their balance sheet. Every company on earth, if they buy Bitcoin, they fix their balance sheet. So Bitcoin is the solution to hundreds of thousands of entities. And if you don't own it, you're not exposed to each of those entities, right? Everything else in the world is not. You're not going to buy a random mobile app in order to fix your balance sheet of your turkey. And you're not going to buy another crypto, right? That there isn't a proof of work digital property which is stable that you can use to fix your city, fix your state, fix your country, fix your business, fix your technology. So I think people underestimate Bitcoin. I think they overestimate everything else. And you're either going to invest in conventional equities, and conventional equities have equity risk, and they have all sorts of a stack of employment risk, tariff risk, transport risk, execution risk, competitive risk, etc. There's a ton of risk there. And I think that when you get into the blockchain area, there's just a huge stack of risk. So I think people typically, they underestimate all the risks of not buying Bitcoin, and they're underexposed. I think that's the number one thing that I think people don't have right now. They should be more exposed to Bitcoin, less exposed to everything else in the world. Like every conventional bank, every, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Fidelity, Blackstone, BlackRock, that they're affected, right? If you're taking $100 trillion of bonds with a negative yield and you swap the $100 trillion of bonds into Bitcoin, which is appreciating, I mean, there's no way to describe that as anything other than a multi-trillion-dollar transformation, digital transformation of bonds to Bitcoin. And, if you look at traditional finance, there are massive businesses that are all built around wrapping fixed income instruments and bond instruments and providing management services. So I think that clearly that's going to be affected. But the other side of this is big tech. Bitcoin is worth $1 trillion to Apple. Bitcoin is worth $1 trillion to Facebook. If Facebook is $1 trillion company, and what's in the app? Your digital relationships and digital photos and digital videos are in the app. Well, what if digital property is in the app? What happens when Facebook has $1 trillion worth of money on deposit in the app from 1 billion people? So Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, I mean, all of those companies, especially Google, Facebook, and Apple, they're the obvious candidates to become trillion-dollar big tech banks, fintech banks. So this is pretty compelling to them because, you know, how many analysts are walking around with the next idea for how Apple adds $1 or $2 or $3 trillion to its market cap? That's a strategy that anybody with capital can pursue. So if you want to make $10 billion, you just buy $10 billion of Bitcoin and wait for it to double, right? It's a very simple strategy. And as large institutions get comfortable with Bitcoin as an asset class, then they're going to pursue that strategy, right? But my idea or my thought with Apple is we will get to a point in this world where 8 billion people will have a mobile phone. There's guys, I guess 6 billion now, 5 to 6 billion. And those mobile phones will be controlled probably by either the iOS or the Android operating system. So you're staring at who are the big mobile players? It's Google and Apple, split the world between them. And then Facebook is that compelling app on top of them. So those are the big three. We will get to the world where everybody wants to carry their property on their phone. And so if I give you $1 million and I say to you, invest it in something that you can give to your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren in 100 years. You know, a building, land, gold, silver, a stock, you know, a bond. You know, what is that something? Well, I don't want to take any of that risk. I just want the pure money. And the answer is, okay, put $1 million of Bitcoin on the thing. And how are you going to handle that? A mobile device. And how are you going to secure it? You know, it's going to be some combination of Face ID, multi-signature Face ID, or biometrics across multiple mobile devices with multi-factor authentication. And that's how you're going to move it. And that's how you're going to custody it. And that means that the iCloud, what's in the iCloud now, right? Your videos, your photos, your documents, and your communications. What's not in the iCloud now? Your money. What happens when $100 trillion gets slurped out of 20th century property, which is land, real estate, gold, bonds, securities? What happens when $100 trillion gets slurped into digital property? It's got to land in the iCloud or the equivalent of the Android cloud or in Facebook. And if none of those three step up, Dan, then it's going to be Square and PayPal. And then one day Square will be $1 trillion company, right? So. And it's going to be a little war between them. And maybe, you know, there'll be maneuvering between the exchanges and the apps, et cetera. But that's the opportunity now, and it's big. It's the future of big tech.